Show has time, looks for Deutsch. Deutsch at the one into the end zone.
Comes on to serve, dug out by Bishop. This to the middle and slamming one home.
And free ball to the crossover. Eilertson will get the pass for Hawley, set up left side. Rusted down with the kill. He'll play action now, look to pass over the middle. It's intercepted by Cole Hebel. Intercepted by Hebel, and he brings it back.
Set it up, Bostena left side. Big kill blocked at the net. Kept alive by the Greyhounds.
Fetting's got room, and here's Bo Fetting. Fetting's still on his feet. Fetting's gone. Bo.
Header serve goes to Kiera Johnson, a libero, but mishandles it. It's an ace.
Riddle 40, 30, he's loose, 20, 10, touchdown, Spartans.
Halstead Telephone Company and R&J Broadcasting Incorporated is proud to present to you this broadcast on yourliveevent.com.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of The Coaches Show on yourliveevent.com. I'm Joe Lancello. He's Chase Miller, and we've been following the sporting scene for about 3 weeks in North Dakota now, 1 week in Minnesota, and it seems like one thing has remained the same from last season is that the team to beat in Class 11B is Kindred, the Vikings.
Yeah, the Kindred Vikings really good up front. Matt Crane, the defending champs again. The one thing, Joe, when you talk to coaches or players in 11B, Mason Nipstead, Packer, Riley Sunram, who's getting offers to the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10 as a junior, as a lineman. The front line of Kindred and the Vikings is where it really starts and ends at. That was part of the reason why they had such a good season last year. And with a new quarterback in Swenson, who's throwing to his younger brother as a wide receiver, there's a little family tie as well. And the Vikings, Joe, went right where they left off from last year. A good win against the Lisbon Broncos, a very impressive win, I thought, on the road against a quality Borough team in Hillsboro. Took advantage of a dangerous, I think, Linton HMB Lion team who's going to be in contention of making the playoffs this year in Region 1 and 11B. And now they have Oak Grove this coming Friday, and we would expect a win in that particular contest. So for Coach Crane and company, they'll have some challenges down the stretch. The Central Cass Squirrels will definitely be one of them. We'll see what else happens kind of moving forward. But yeah, 11B right now, at least from the eastern side in the southeast portion of the state, with that line, with what Matt Crane and has done over the years of building that program up, Kindred Richland, a very quality club, Joe.
And speaking of Kindred, Matt Crane, the coach of the Vikings, will be talking right now in defense of his team. Well, not in defense, but certainly in support of his team, as they're number one ranked once again in 11B football in North Dakota. On the Coaches Show on yourliveevent.com, Matt Crane, the coach of the defending 11B state football champions, the Kindred Vikings, joins us now. Matt, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And you're off to a nice start, 3-0 on this season. That includes a couple of shutouts and a win over Hillsboro, the team that you beat last year for the state championship. Talk about how your season's gone.
Yeah, it's been a good start. It's fun. It's a new team. It's a team with some returners from that season that you're referencing there and in that state championship run, and we got some new guys that are stepping in and are learning the ropes. So we've had some really, really good moments, and we've had some moments that we got to improve upon. So we're working just like everybody to get better every day, and but it's been fun so far.
How is your team different from 1 year ago?
Well, like I said, we got some new guys in some new spots, right? I think the biggest one that with football, quarterback position is obviously one that everybody notices, and so we got a new quarterback in Jorgen Swenson. And so he's taken the ropes, and he's done a nice job so far, and so we're doing some different things with the offense than we did last year, and having growing pains now and then, and then he comes out and does some tremendous stuff. So like I said, we're working on everything, and it's exciting, it's fun, it's every single year you get a new group of guys that you get to work with, and so this has been a fun team to work with.
Who are some of the guys that have stood out for you this year so far?
This last game, one guy that really, really just had a tremendous game that I should talk about is Hunter Bindus. He's a sophomore linebacker, and he is just flying around the field. So he played really, really well. Those are two positions that we needed people to step in and really fill big roles for us on the defensive side of the ball. And Hunter has played really, really well. There's Jorgen Swenson, I'd say, is one of our bigger playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, and so he's done a nice job as well. So a couple of sophomores there, but they've done a nice job.
I noticed that one of your players, Charles Buer, made a catch in the opening game that was highlight of the week on one of the Fargo TV stations.
Yeah, he went up there and made a catch that was a tremendous catch. He jumped up and kind of plucked the ball out from the defender, and he's a terrific athlete, and he's a kid that just plays with a ton of energy, and he's having himself a great senior year so far, and hopefully he can keep it going. But he plays with a ton of energy, and it's a lot of fun to watch him run around.
You're off to a 2-0 start in Region 1. Who do you see as the other teams to beat that could be a threat to you repeating as region champs?
Yeah, there's some good football teams in Region 1, and so we saw that Oaks was able to beat Central Cass, and I knew they were going to be a really good football team, and so they're going to be a team obviously to watch. Central Cass and us are a huge rivalry, and so that's a game that you can never you just never know what's going to happen, and so it's just going to be a battle there. So, and they always have a good ball club, so it's going to be Central Cass, it's going to be Oaks, and we're just going to take it, a week at a time. We got Oak Grove this week, and we're not really worried about winning a region championship right now. We're worried about trying to get Oak Grove here on Friday night, and if we can get them, we'll be sitting better than we were this week.
That can be a challenge for a coach to keep a team from not looking past an opponent. Oak Grove yet to win a game this season, and you've got Oaks coming up in a couple of weeks after this one. How do you keep the guys focused?
I think it's just, we understand where we want to be at the end of the year. We have our goals, and to get there, it doesn't just happen tomorrow. It happens, with baby steps. It happens every single drill. You got to get better. You got to improve. And so in order to improve, you got to win the day, and you got to win the rep, and you got to win the practice, and so those are the things that we're trying to do every day until we get to that, that big game or what have you. And so practice reps are vital. Game reps are vital. This game on Friday night against Oak Grove is big for us. And so I think that's the message. And so we have to improve, and we're going to improve today and hopefully tomorrow and the next day.
Now, is that a home game?
It is. Yep.
Okay. So we're about a third of the we are through a third of the season already. It seems like everybody just started.
Yeah, it happened early here. I mean, we started that first practice first week of August, and it has been rolling. So like I said, a third done, already in week 4 here, and before you know it, we'll be, snow will be flying. We'll be playing playoff football.
Well, we'll see what happens, and maybe you'll be ending the season once again in the Fargo Dome playing for a state championship.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll take it this week at a time, but that'd be a tremendous opportunity.
All right. Matt Crane, coach of the Kindred Vikings, thank you for joining us on YourLiveEvent.com, and hopefully we'll talk again a little bit later on in the season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Buying a new home, but worried about the interest rate and terms from your bank? At First Class Mortgage, we'll find a mortgage that fits your needs. Shopping national banks and other lenders for the lowest rate and most affordable terms, saving you time and money. So all you need to worry about is enjoying your new home. First Class Mortgage, our expertise, your peace of mind. Put an expert to work for you. Call today.
North Dakota state law requires students attending school to be up to date on immunizations that protect them from life-threatening diseases such as measles, chickenpox, mumps, or pertussis. Trail District Health Unit reminds parents to get your children all the recommended vaccinations for their health and the safety of our community. Contact Trail District Health Unit if you have any vaccination questions or if you would like to schedule an appointment. Call 701-636-4434 for Trail District Health Unit.
Welcome back to the Coaches Show on YourLiveEvent.com. Going to switch gears and talk a little bit about high school volleyball right now because we've got two teams that we cover quite frequently, Chase. that are ranked 1-2 in Class B. That's Northern Cass, the defending runners-up, at number 1, and Thompson, the team ranked second in the state this week, was third in the state last year in Class B.
Yeah, and Class B is going to be fun again. There's a lot of names in the first poll that have been to state the last couple of years in North Dakota. Linton HMB, the back-to-back defending champ, is tied with Langdon area Edmore Munich, who you're going to see pretty quickly here, Joe, with the top 5 matchup against Thompson on Thursday night in Thompson. So that one's going to be fun to see, and that's what makes Class B a lot of fun. Sometimes, in particularly volleyball, whether it's a tournament or a non-region game, you get to kind of maybe see where your team is early on in the season, and that's what this will be for the Cardinals and the Tommies. But going to Northern Cass, the number 1 rated team, and as you mentioned, runners-up from last year, Coach Angie Johnson's back as the head coach. And the Jags, I don't know where they find them, but they find 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" type of players. And in volleyball, when you got that size at the net, it makes it awfully difficult to try to steer around it if you're going to be an outside hitter or a mid hitter. The Crockett's names are there again. The Lucas's name is there again. The big question, I think, for me, from a point of view, was losing their libero last year, and some of the seniors was Abby Richmond. She just did a lot of things awfully well, so that'll be something as the year progresses here for Coach Johnson. How do you get your rotations going throughout the season? And Coach Strand, she's a vet for the Thompson Tommies. They've been there, they've done that. Obviously, they want to find ways to get back to a state championship and find their role. But at the end of the day, Joe, it's still very early in the volleyball landscape. We're 2 months away before we start talking regionals in the state of North Dakota. So from a coaching standpoint, good time of the year to get some opportunities to play against some quality opponents, but also at the end of the day, try to stay fresh, stay healthy. And I'm really curious to see what the Cardinals and Tommies kind of look like, to see how competitive will that be for early September volleyball match in Class B.
Matter of fact, you're going to be seeing Northern Cass a couple of times in the next few weeks, aren't you?
Yeah, they got a matchup with Kindred upcoming around the corner, a matchup with Central Cass coming up around the corner. The Squirrels, we're receiving votes in the top 10 poll. The Kindred Vikings, they lost a lot of seniors from last year, but they still have a Striley. There's still a Casey Berner that's there, and a couple of other quality players here. That Kindred probably felt like they left the Region 1 tournament a little too early last year, not making the semifinals. So for the players coming back, there's a little bit of motivation. And for Northern Cass, same thing. This will be a separating week next week for the Jaguars. If they can take care of business upcoming, they could really put themselves in a situation like they were last year, Joe, to be a top 2 team in the region and have an opportunity to kind of say, hey, we're going to be the number 1 seed. It's going to have to come through us here again in Region 1.
Thompson looked pretty solid last week when I saw them Thursday when they defeated Carrington 3 straight sets. They take on a Langdon area Edmore Munich team that's tied for 4th in the poll this week. So that should be pretty interesting too. Langdon does not have a big varsity roster, just 9 players, and not a great deal of size, but Cora Batting, I understand, has quite a bit of varsity experience, and it'll be interesting to see how they match up with Summer Haig and Clara Stevens on the Thompson side of the net.
Yeah, and Langdon, the one thing, losing a Freegee that's been around for quite some time. I think she went to VCSU for collegiate volleyball. You look at Alexis Olson, someone who was there for 2, 3, 4 years as well for the Cardinals. That was the question, right? That's attrition in high school sports. You lose a senior class. How does the next competition comes in? Well, from what Langdon has done, at least on the court to this time, Joe, the new girls that maybe had to wait their turn or maybe were more role players last year now are starters this year, they've done it to this point. So that's where I kind of said I'm really curious to see how competitive that one is top to bottom, because some years Region 2 is so much better than Region 5. Or some years Region 8 maybe doesn't get as much love as Region 1 does in the state of North Dakota. And a lot of people have said it over the years, if you can get out of Region 1, you're a state champion competitor. If you can get out of Region 2, particularly how Thompson's been, you have a chance to make a run to the semis and not the championship. Linton HMB and Kenmare has been a lot of fun for the central and western part of the state. Now can a Dickinson Trendy or someone else out west, pop up? And Langdon obviously is going to be there. And the one thing with Langdon and Thompson, they've been kind of the kings or queens on the block for a while now. Who's going to be the team that can knock them off the block once we get to tournament play? That'll be the question 2 months from now.
And the one to mark on your calendar will be October the 4th, and that's when Thompson goes to Northern Cass. And that will be a really big game, and certainly on the polls and possibly postseason seedings.
And that's the thing. You mentioned seeding, right? Top 5 teams get seeded. This is a coach's poll vote at the end of the day, but these non-region matchups do carry a little bit more weight than in Class A. Class A, if Bismarck Century plays Shanley, well, it doesn't really make a difference how they get seeded, because how you do in your conference tournament in the WDA or the EDC is what matters. But in Class B, you first got to win your region. And if you can win your region and you got some bullets, so to speak, some nice wins on your resume, then all of a sudden you feel like, okay, we should not be just maybe a 4 seed, Joe. Maybe we should be a 2 seed or a 1 seed, and that would make our quote-unquote road to a title, quote, easier. But at the end of the day, when you get 8 state tournament teams, you know there's going to be competition from across the board. So, and that's a game that will be on your live event as well in October. So it'll be a lot of fun to kind of see the competition from here and there. But that's what makes these non-region matchups. Sometimes you might not play a player because he or she might be nicked up in a non-region game. But in volleyball, if you don't play them, that can maybe be the end of, well, head-to-head competition, Joe. Northern Cass beat Thompson or vice versa. That's why they should be in front of you in a particular poll if both teams are able to make the state tournament.
The yeah-buts don't really
Exactly,
matter.
yep.
And speaking of Class A volleyball, the new rankings have West Fargo Cheyenne as the number 1 team with 2-time defending champion Bismarck Century number 2. It's only about 5 votes difference, but Cheyenne got 7 first-place votes, I see.
Yeah, and the one thing I think that stood out with Cheyenne is they went to that East-West crossover to start the season in Bismarck, came unbeaten from that, able to beat a very scrappy and also a little new team in West Fargo where they lost their coach, lost the senior athlete of the year, Nadia Fiakuski, who's now at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Her freshman sister now is a libero, but West Fargo is going to be scrappy throughout the season, but who they've beaten and who they played, I think, made it going, okay, they got to be the 1 team. Coach Zastapula on Century, you can almost pen them into the championship the last decade in North Dakota, not pencil. Fargo North, though, with Coach Hummel has been a really cool story. They were down 2 sets to love last week at Fargo South at the Bruin Den, came storming all the way back, won a 5-setter. They were undefeated, going into last night's competition on Tuesday night with everything. Coach Hummel's got that Spartan team playing well early on the season. Now it's just a matter of, can you play well through September? Can you put yourself in an opportunity in the Eastern Dakota Conference, Joe, to be a top 4 seed? And if you can, then all of a sudden you start talking about hosting a quarterfinal round game, and then you go to the semifinals, potentially 1 win away from trying to make the state tournament. So North has been, I'm not going to say a pleasant surprise, but it's been a cool story because the Shanleys, the Jamestowns, the Centuries, West Fargo Cheyennes have gotten a lot of love, Red River, and rightfully so for what they've done in recent years. But it's kind of cool to throw in a Bismarck or a Fargo North in there every now and then, as we've seen right now in the poll.
So a lot of fun stuff, a lot of fun volleyball to keep an eye on. And in Minnesota, there's going to be something going on in Ada this week. Ada Borup West hosting their annual tournament. 16 teams from around the area. So a full day of volleyball there. I'll be interested to see how things shake out there at the end of the day.
And the difference in Minnesota and North Dakota, these games also count in Minnesota, but from the QRF standpoint. So depending on who you lose to, how you lose to them, if you beat a certain team, you might be able to move up rankings. The same thing. At the end of the day, these games determine your fate to make a state tournament. The answer is no. They're non-region games, but an opportunity to bolster your resume one more time. And that's the really cool thing with volleyball is we've talked about Ada, 16 teams. Central Cass this weekend's hosting a volleyball tournament. Next weekend, Valley City in North Dakota will be hosting a volleyball tournament, a crossover of some A and B teams coming together. That's what makes volleyball, I think, really fun, Joe, sometimes is you get different classes, different sections in your respective state, and sometimes it doesn't matter if you're a 4A school in 8-4A, in Minnesota, or 8 maybe AA. That AA team sometimes can compete with that 4A school just as well than maybe some section opponents that they have, and particularly in our neck of the woods in the Red River Valley, sometimes you get that with different sections and different classes, and I'm glad the coaches are able to get a tournament like this going in Ada, and 16 teams, that's a lot. Bring your popcorn to Ada this coming weekend.
Yes, and have the phone fully charged. And we'll continue with your coaches show on yourliveevent.com. We'll do that after we take this break.
Treat yourself to a great career at American Crystal Sugar Company. Team up with quality people making quality products. Full-time and year-round in a stable business. With great pay and benefits including time off available from day one. American Crystal Sugar Company invests in you to promote your continued growth and career advancement. Grow your career doing your best work within the world's best beet sugar company. Apply online today at AmericanCrystalCareers.com.
Don't be fooled by that beat-up old cap. Its faded crown represents the tireless work of America's farmers and ranchers. Its sturdy brim, their dedication to providing our nation with a safe, affordable food source from sunup to sundown. They're turning quarters into the dollars that drive our rural economy. So we'd like to tip our hat to them. Farmers Union Insurance. Protecting those that protect America's food source.
Contact Ryan Opdahl, Farmers Union Insurance, Hillsboro.
Welcome back to the Coaches Show on YourLiveEvent.com. I'm Joe Lancello. He's Chase Miller. Going to go back to talking about high school football now. 3 weeks, about a third of the season into the books in North Dakota already. The latest rankings have not come out as we record this. You folks will have seen them, but Thompson, I think, getting closer to a spot in the top 5. The Tommies with a 3-0 start, they've had to scramble a little bit to win their last 2 games.
Yeah, Harvey-Wells County, a really quality opponent, obviously a non-region game, but a playoff team from a year ago, and that was a back and forth. You were calling that game, Joe. And Thompson, obviously, what are they going to look like against HCV? The Burros coming up, sooner rather than later. I think that's going to be a real barometer game a little bit for them to test to see where they're at. But at the end of the day, as coaches say, Joe, we just got to play our schedule and go 1-0. And it's, as much as that is coaches speaking cliche, the really good ones do it awfully well, and they just find a way to make it 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, and don't overlook anyone. And when you can do that, and as the Tommies have done going 3-0, they've set themselves up really nicely right now as we get into the middle part of September, because 9B football playoffs, October 15th, gets going. 11B is October 22nd. 11A and 11AA is October 28th, which tells me we're less than 2 months, if not almost 1 month away, depending on what division you're in North Dakota, to postseason time.
Just so much there. And who are the teams that have impressed you so far?
Yeah, and if we're going to go 9B, if we go from the smallest, I guess you could say, to the biggest, Lemoore Lisho Marion, if anybody beats them, I'm going to be very surprised. And I don't mean that to say that Mayport CG or a Cavalier or New Salem Almont doesn't have any chance, but they bring back a loaded team. Colton Ness, a senior tight end, just continues to catch touchdowns. They have a savvy quarterback. They also have a really good line. Hebel just makes plays everywhere on both offensively and defensively. A linebacker just likes to wrap up and make plays. Mayport CG is going to be a very curious team. Maple River, a team that we covered after losing to the Lobos, won their last 2 games. How do they begin region play this weekend, I believe, against the Thunder of Hatt Northwood? That's going to be a large game for the playoffs. 11B right now, I think the strength has been in recent years on the eastern side with the Langdons, with the Hillsboro and Kindreds. But Oaks is a team that beat Central Cass, and in 3 games, Joe, the Tornadoes have forced 16 turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. A reason why they're 3-0. Coach Greg Dobitz, has done a really good job with them. Xavier Vossler, the quarterback. And then they got a Paper. They got a Heim. They got a bunch of weapons on the outside. The Tornadoes are for real, and they go up against Park River area coming up here. And if they can take care of business there in a non-region game, they get to 4-0, and now all of a sudden the Lisbons and the Kindreds of the world, I think, are going to be very interesting to see how it matches up for postseason play, at least on the Region 1 side in 11B.
I think in the last weekend of September is when Oaks and Kindred square off.
And that's going to be a good one to circle that particular game. Kindred's going to have a little bit tougher of a schedule with the Squirrels upcoming as well. Out west, Dickinson Trinity just continues to light up the scoreboard like a Christmas tree. It's like 40 points here, 50 points there. The Titans are really good. Velvet Garrison, the Aggies continue to get votes and ranked up there. So it's kind of the similar face just a little bit, but I think Oaks is an interesting team at 11B. 11A, Jamestown at Fargo North. That's 1A, 1B, I think, for a lot of people. Fargo South with Coach Colzel, what they have brewing for Grand Forks Red River, a nice road win in Wahpeton last week. How can they continue to climb and find themselves? But I think at this particular time, with what we've seen on the field, the Blue Jays, the defending champs, North lost to Jamestown last year in the playoffs. Can they find themselves back into a postseason and maybe be on opposite sides of the bracket this year? That'll be interesting. And then 11AA kind of looks wide open a little bit. Your typical Bismarck Century, they're 0-2. Mandan, 2-0 on the season. Shanley, a nice win against the West Fargo Packers in a contest that was, high 30s, low 40s. And also Fargo Davies with a really nice win against West Fargo Cheyenne by 4 touchdowns at home. So I think 11A this year, Joe, we're seeing a little bit more, not one or two teams and everybody else. We're seeing everybody come together. Maybe parity might be the best way to describe 11AA right now.
And on the Minnesota side of the border, we've just had one game so far. Fertile Beltrami seem to have a pretty easy time with Northern Freeze, which is Newfoundland and Carlstead and folks way up in that neighborhood there. So I think they'll be doing well. The Mahnomen Waban Thunderbirds should be doing pretty well. I had a chance to see them scrimmage a couple of weeks ago, and they looked really good as well. Matter of fact, their B team, I think, managed the World Varsity to kind of a standoff.
Yeah, and the one thing, Mahnomen Waban, there's a lot of tradition, obviously, with that football program. They were able to get to the Fargo Dome last year for their section championship. You take a look at some teams that, again, attrition, right? Some seniors that are maybe gone. Where do you kind of go on the offense and defensive line of the ball? Ada Boric West, what was that game? Went to overtime, I believe, last week for their opener in football as well. So you kind of start taking a look at some scores and you start box scoring a little bit, watching and going, okay, is Team A against Team B that plays Team C 2 weeks from now, is it going to be as close as what maybe some of these scores are? Compared to North Dakota, where 9-man football, half the season is done after this Friday. Minnesota very early still in its infancy of trying to figure out who might be the stingiest team. DGF, the Rebels, they're going to make a run again to try to be a section champ. They defeated the Otters of Fergus Falls last year at the Fargo Dome. I think like North Dakota, like Minnesota, probably going to be a lot of similar faces that we've seen in recent years, but will some of the programs that maybe have made their runs maybe haven't been there as much once the seniors and juniors over the last couple of years have graduated, where will they fall? Like a Barnesville Trojan team with Coach Strand, always going to be gritty, always going to be there, but they've lost some really good talent that has gone to Division I, Division II football, and you're not going to have that year in and year out, and maybe when you lose one or two guys, how does the next wave of players kind of come through and still continue that tradition of excellence that we've seen Barnesville find themselves play down at US Bank Stadium more times than not here, Joe, over the last handful of seasons?
I can remember making long road trips from War Road to Barnesville and then to Breckenridge many years ago. Come to think of it, War Road is going to be at Polk County West taking on the Thunder in Climax on Friday night. That's one of the games we'll have on yourliveevent.com this week, and we'll run down other games that we will have on yourliveevent.com when we come back right after this.
Lee Brothers Sales, Highway 9 in Ada, invites you to order your new Buick and Chevrolet vehicles from the Silverado, Trailblazers, Traverse, and Enclave. Lee Brothers is your authorized Chevrolet and Buick dealer, providing sales and a service to the area since 1975. For ordering your vehicles, talk with Mitch, Smurf, or Jay. Trust the experts who know your vehicles best and take advantage of great Chevy certified service offers today. Lee Brothers Sales, Highway 9, Ada, 218-784-2000.
There is another way to minimize your farm's risk and protect its equity with margin protection coverage. This is Bethany Rentz, crop insurance agent with IRE Insurance. Margin protection provides coverage against an unexpected decrease or increase in operating margin. In other words, we can put a policy in place to protect you from changing input costs and crop prices on your farm. Let us help you explore this option between now and September 30th to get you covered. For more information, go to IREINS.com.
You're protected and appreciated at IRE.
Joe Lancello and Chase Miller back with you on yourliveevent.com on the Coaches Show, and we've got plenty of games coming up here on yourliveevent.com. You can watch those live or watch them later. Let's see, Thursday night we've got volleyball. You're going to be seeing Central Cass at Maple River.
And that's going to be a fun one in Tower City. If you have never been to Tower City before, Joe, it's a really quaint environment. It kind of reminds me of Hoosiers, the movie. You got about 4 rows on either side. You got the pillars that come up and in. So for volleyball, if you don't control a really good pass, you might hit the top of the ceiling more than getting something to your setter. So that's always a home court advantage for the Raiders. But the Squirrels and the Raiders, Maple River lost earlier in the week to the Lisbon Broncos last week in 4 sets in Lisbon. The Central Cass Squirrels Hillsboro's, they're a runner-up last year in Region 1, and they're bringing back some players back, including a DeConte Smith, who's a D2 basketball commit in Northern State. So there's going to be talent on display coming up on Thursday night in Tower City.
And Langdon's going to be at Thompson. I'll have that game for you on YourLifeEvent.com. Barnesville at Holly, and the Nuggets, always a team to keep an eye on. They made it to the state tournament last year.
Yeah, and they played a 4-8 AA school in Moorhead and took the first set last night against the Spuds in Holly, which that was a really good crowd as well that was on hand. So always fun to see the Nuggets. Again, we talked about it in football, Joe, about programs that just kind of seem to stay the same. They might go down, but they don't go down much. That reminds me of the Holly Nuggets here the last couple of years in volleyball.
Also, Hillsborough Central Valley will be taking on Drayton Valley Edinburgh. Jake Berkmeyer will have that. So those are the games on YourLifeEvent.com, but also, I forgot. Ada Borup West hosting Norman County East Ulen Hitterdal, and on Garden Valley Television, Foston will be hosting Mahnomen Waban. Then Friday we get to some more football. What's the game you have?
I got the night off. I get to go celebrate my mom's birthday, so that's always fun. But I know the Squirrels are going to be in contention. The Bulldogs in North Dakota are going to be in contention. But Joe, you don't get too many Fridays off in the fall, so when you do, you might as well take it and might as well spend it with Mom for her birthday.
There you go. But we have Central Cass at Lisbon. What do you think of that one?
That's a large game. That is a awfully large game because the Squirrels are already with one loss on the season. If they lose a second one, they're on the verge of maybe not making the playoffs then after being a team that made it to the quarterfinals last season and talking about their run, playing against Hillsborough Central Valley before they came up short of the Dakota Bowl. This is a team that lost to Oaks, and if they get their second loss in the region, they're probably not going to host a first round game like they did last year, and then all of a sudden that puts Lisbon and Oaks a little bit more in the driver's seat. If Lisbon loses, they've already played Kindred, but if they lose, well, then they are the team with 2 losses, and they still have Oaks left to play, and they were able to beat a stingy Linton HMB team. Sargent County is always a dangerous team, so that is a large ball game Friday night on your live event in Lisbon.
Also, we've got Hillsborough Central Valley making the trip to Grafton to take on the Spoilers. I saw the Spoilers a couple of weeks ago. Not sure how impressed I was.
And that's the one thing. Grafton has lost some players throughout the years. It wasn't too long ago that they made the playoffs, but since then it just kind of feels like they're finding their rhythm, they're finding their footing a little bit. And the one thing against the Burroughs team, if Hillsborough Central Valley gets up on you early with Coach Olson, they play really good defense. They can run the ball, and if they get up 2 scores early, that can be a game where if you're Grafton, you don't want to play from behind early in the first quarter.
And one more North Dakota game. Ellendale EK is going to be at Sargent County. EEK, was kind of an interesting bunch. They were a really young team themselves. I think only 3 or 4 seniors.
Yeah, the Rebels going up against the Bulldogs, and Sargent County picked up their first region win 2 weeks ago in Gwinner against Fargo Oak Grove. Then they had to go up to the Geographical Center of North American Rugby the next week for their lone non-region game. So I'm sure there'll be some tired legs for Coach Olson and company. But same thing. If Sargent County can get that win on Friday night, they all of a sudden become 2-1 in Region 1 play and put themselves a little bit more in a driver's seat to where if they can take care of business, you get to 4 region wins. Now you're talking postseason a little bit, Joe. So, every game early is big, but if the Bulldogs can take care of business in Milner against the Rebels, that'll be a large ball game as well. A sneaky one, I will say, sneaky one there coming up on Friday night in Milner.
And also Monday night, a Minnesota matchup, Warroad at Polk County West, also known as Fisher Climax and Sacred Heart. Also on Garden Valley Television, we've got Nevis at Clearbrook-Gonvick, and games that are radio only. Ada Borup West will travel to Foston, Mahnomen Waban at Lake Park Audubon, and Norman County East Ulen Hitterdal hosting Park Christian. So a busy Friday. Saturday, Ada Borup West has their tournament, and come to think of it, the Cougars are going to be busy. They're going to be playing at home against Frazee on Monday night, so not much time for the legs to get some rest.
No, not at all. And that's what makes it a great time of the year. You get to have a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances on the volleyball court, and find ways to just keep on getting better. Maybe change the rotation or keep the rotation the same moving forward, Joe.
And football teams will be wanting to make sure that they've got the parts that they want in the right places to be successful.
Yeah, and they've been fortunate because the weather has been okay so far. North Dakota, there's been some rain. Minnesota, same thing. But for the most part, we get to middle of September and you got 70, 75 degrees at kickoff. We'll take it because we know snow and really chilly, hopefully not going to happen, but October could be upon us sooner rather than later.
To use the racetracking term, we don't want to find out who the mudders are just yet.
No, not at all.
Okay, that will do it for this edition of The Coaches Show on YourLiveEvent.com. For Chase Miller, I'm Joe Lancello. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.